a new tool for uncovering more about your roots from Ancestry. Welcome back to Techstination. I'm Fred Fishkin. With us from Ancestry is Barry Starr, Director of Scientific Communications. Hi, Barry.
Hey, Fred.
Interesting title. Diving into family history can be a lot of fun, and using DNA can sure help to uncover a lot. So now you've unveiled something called SideView technology. Give us the overview about this.
Yeah, SideView is this really game-changing technology. So scientists have struggled for, I'd say, decades to try and separate out people's DNA by parental side. So when you get your DNA, it's not easy to tell which came from one side and which came from the other. So SideView allows Ancestry to now do this.
Why was that so hard to do, to be able to separate the two?
Yeah, it's been a tricky problem for years, and the way we overcame it was through the use of our enormous DNA database, which is over 20 million and counting. The way that we have separated out using SideView is to take advantage of DNA matches. So this are segments of identical DNA that you share with a DNA relative. And the bigger the DNA database, the more of these matches you have, and so the better the results you get with the SideView technology.
So from a user perspective here, what's the significance? What am I going to be able to see that I couldn't see before?
Yeah, so this is big. The really big advantage is before phasing, or it's called phasing, SideView technology, the separation of the DNA by parental side. The only way you could really do a good job with it was to have a parent tested as well. But this technology allows you to do it without a parent being tested. And so what you can then learn is which came, for example, the first feature that we've released is called ethnicity inheritance. And so what that tells you is which side of the family did ethnicities come from. For example, when I look at my results, I can see, and it makes sense, that German and East European came from one side of the family, English and Scotland came from the other.
We've got some Scottish things in common that I learned from this, actually, 29% that I wasn't quite aware of. I thought there was more Irish, but that says Scottish. So interesting. So tell us, you said there's more to come, that this is a first thing. So
right. So
you're dropping some hints here.
Yeah, so SideView is really this foundational technology which will unlock a bunch of features. So ethnicity inheritance was the first one. The next one that'll come out will be around DNA matches. So your DNA relatives, which side of the family are they from? You know, your second cousin Betsy is from one side of the family and your fourth cousin Thomas is from the other. And it'll be able to do that with your thousands and thousands of matches. And then the next one down the line will be DNA communities. So these are really, these are more ethnicity where you can pinpoint a place in the world. So for example, you could learn that one side of the family came from this part of Pennsylvania and the other side of the family came from this part of Pennsylvania, just with your DNA results.
It's really interesting. But today, with the mobility of societies, is it getting harder and harder to pinpoint things like that? I mean, years ago, people certainly didn't move the way we do now.
Right. So the DNA communities traces time back to probably 200, 300 years ago when there wasn't that mobility. And then what you can also see with that is that mobility, because with DNA communities, you can see how people who lived in that place and time have moved over the years. So, for example, one of the cool things is you can see the great migration of African Americans moving from the South to the North through this data.
Very interesting. So in the future, when people try to look back on us, it's going to be more difficult because they're not going to be able to pinpoint regions where their families, where their heritage is from.
Right, right. It'll be in 200 or 300 years, it will be harder to find communities in our time.
What are some of the more interesting things perhaps that you've learned by working in this and doing this?
Oh, that's an interesting question. So I have learned certainly the power of the size of a DNA database, how important it is to have the bigger the DNA database, the better for creating these sorts of tools. I think one of the other things that I've learned is when you have this large DNA database, you start to be able, or you are better able to help customers of non-European ancestry. So for example, our SideView technology works extremely well with African Americans and Latinx people as well.
Interesting. So going forward, there's going to be a lot more in terms of features that you'll be adding to this. And tell us how people can take advantage of this, what they need to do if they're interested.
Well, if you need to buy a DNA kit and get tested, but if you already are a customer, it's free and it's waiting in your results right now. Go find your ethnicity inheritance and have fun and enjoy.
And there is much more to come. And once people get involved with this whole field of family history, genealogy, whatever name we want to call it, it can be really absorbing. And people tend to, once they get started, it can take a lot of time, but it's interesting and it's fun to share it too, right?
Yeah, no, it's this fascinating puzzle to solve. And DNA is an incredibly important tool in that. And as is all of the records and all of that Ancestry offers as well. And so you can really go far back in time and see who your ancestors were and learn these really stories about your family.
That's one thing that you try to do is try to put things into context, tell a story. So it's not just names and dates, but you're trying to help people put a story together.
That's right. That's right. And that's what makes it really cool, right? Is, oh, one of the things I found that I thought was so cool was someone had posted a picture of, I want to say my great grandfather, or maybe even my great great grandfather. I can't remember now, but I had never seen a picture of him before. And it was so cool to look at that and go, that looks just like so-and-so. And then to dig a little deeper and say, oh, he was a school teacher. And, all of this information that I knew nothing about, that just helps it come alive.
Very cool. And the one thing I've noticed is that in those old pictures, people didn't tend to do a lot of smiling for whatever reason. They looked really stern and serious.
They did. They did. I can't remember, there was a movie I saw where there was a running gag about that someone in the 19th century trying to find a picture where someone had smiled, that they were like, no, you couldn't have smiled.
Very good. So for more info, the place to go is ancestry.com. Barry Starr, thank you for taking the time with us.
No, thanks a lot. And this is such a great new feature. Really go out and enjoy it.